I hope you all are enjoying the sessions and getting some valuable insights through our honorable speakers. Now, let's quickly begin with our second panel discussion of the day, that is AI, the science behind the good customer experience, for which we have with us Ravi Sundarajan, Chief Operating Officer, Gupshup, Rishabh Garg, Chief Technology Officer, Ugrow Capital, Vasudev Sharma, Chief Technology O- Vasudev Sharma, VP Platform Engineering, Upstocks, Nikhil Bandi, Chief Technology and Digital and Operations Officer, APAC Financial Services Private Limited, Karthikeyan K, Co-founder and CTO, Credit B, Balaji TK, Chief Information Officer, Orange Retail Finance Limited, Dominic Vijay Kumar, VP and Chief Technology Officer, Art Housing Finance Limited. A very warm welcome to you all, sir. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Ravi Sundarajan, Chief Operating Officer, Gupshup. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shivani. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're having a great conference. The goal for today, I think we have a very distinguished panel of CTOs from the leading companies, and they are the practitioners who are trying different types of technologies and being the early adopters for some of these trends and use cases. So the topic, as Shivani mentioned, science behind the good customer experience using AI. So AI is actually a loaded term. People use AI for different things. In this context, what we are saying is how do we create better customer experiences? By customer experiences, what we mean is the customer behavior has changed a lot in recent times, especially with the pandemic. Right, people want to operate remotely, so they want to have a lot of these experiences. And once you're remote and you're on mobile or any other medium, digital first type of interactions, they want it to be personalized, interactive, and always on. Right, customers are now need personalized 24/7 live assistance, and they anytime, anywhere, wherever they are, they want to get product information, create custom offers, make instantaneous purchases, track orders, provide feedback, enable returns, and repurchase their favorite items. So, what we'll do is the goal of this session is to talk to these practitioners to figure out what are they doing to deploy such use cases, how the role of AI in enabling these great, not only good but great customer experiences. So that's the context. Having said that, so let's start with Karthikeyan K, who's a co-founder and CTO of Credit B. So Karthik, the question I had for you is, obviously deployment of AI has helped organizations to make these things experiences much more personalized, interactive, and contextual. But what more can we expect from these AI technologies in the future? How does Credit B plan to leverage AI to create delightful conversational experiences? If you could throw some light on that, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi. Good afternoon to all, right? So, just to give based on Ravi's question, right, I think there are three parts to that, right? As in, if you look at it, there is personalization, there is interaction, and there is a context, right? So, some of the things which we have already done is like, let's say, we cater to a large segment of Indian customers, and they come from various diverse backgrounds. So, personalization is definitely a must. And here, what we do is that we have different lot of models which keep running in the background and deciding what are the segment of customers, what are the products that we need to be making available to the customers, etc., based on the data variables, etc., that we come out of them, right? So personalization is definitely very much important there, in the sense that we decide what is the best fit of products for which customer. And definitely there is a learning process, as in the models keep getting improved and improved. There is always a A/B testing which keeps going on, based on which there is like, let's say there is 10% one model is running, 10% another model is running, etc., and then we keep a look at the performances of the model, right? Based on which these things keep getting improved or deployed into the on a larger scale for our customers, right? On top of this, what happens is that the next level is where you start giving more suggestions, right? Hints to the customer. One is that you have decided that that is there, and then you start giving more hints to the customers. This is where we are now working on, where we are looking at, since we have seen the behavior of the customer and how the customer is engaged in the credit system, we want to start giving them more interaction with respect to what is the better ways in which they could start saving money, whatever they are doing, right? Because we have a credit history of the customer, and we also know the financial structure of the customer. So we are looking at how we can give some hints as to how we can start saving the money and investing the money to get better returns out of whatever money he has. So this is where we are looking at in terms of personalization with respect to what we want to do in the future, right? For interaction is basically interactive is more with respect to, I would say, the clarifications or helping out the customers when they are stuck, right? And this is where context also comes into play, mainly because there could be different contexts in the sense that the customer is that basically is trying to create a profile, or is trying to basically take a loan, or is trying to do whatever operation, make a repayment, etc., right? So this is where as in the more of the we have a lot of other things which is there in planning, and which is some of them are in beta stages and stuff like that. So obviously we have text-based conversational systems which are quite mature and which are deployed, and this thing I'll not talk more about those. But the more interesting part that comes is that with respect to the recent developments, with respect to voice-based conversation and stuff like that, right? So here, we obviously in Indian market we do have a slight complication in the sense mainly because of the language diversity. But English and Hindi is something that we are looking at how we can do it, and along with the context, right? As in what the customer is talking about could be talked about in different ways. So that's where we have something like BERT models, etc., kind of things which are trying to make out what is the exact context of the customer with basically the previous context as to what he was doing in the application, and both of them coming together and trying to come up with a better way in which we can try to solve the customers basically this thing, right? So the interaction, try to keep the agent interaction as minimal as possible, keep make the systems keep interacting with them, and then at one point in time there is a switch over to the agent in a seamless manner, right? That is one thing that we are looking at. And even with respect to the context in the voice based systems, we are looking at how to do that, right? Since we do have a lot of customer interaction with respect to telesales and with respect to collections. All these languages are basic whatever recordings and all those things are being used for training these models, etc. But somewhere mainly because of these language barrier, right? Multiple language barrier. We are looking at how we can improve these things. But these are some things that we are looking at how we can get it into the market on a faster basis, right? Because once you have these AI models and all those things, especially in this COVID situation, or the last 2 years, the pandemic situation that was there, even if the agents are not available, you can scale your systems as much as possible, right? As in, it doesn't matter that you have to hire 100 people or 200 people. You can just deploy your systems on the cloud, and they can scale up very much fast. So yeah, so definitely personalization, interaction, and context is definitely important, and we are looking at these new ways in which we can basically deliver these experiences to the customer in a better way. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Karthikeyan. As you mentioned, I think obviously you covered the various journeys, but also what's becoming important is India is different from some other countries, right? Here you have multiple languages, levels of literacy are very different. It's just not these three or four urban cities with 150, 200 million people who can speak English or higher levels of literacy. So I think as we look at India and look at a lot of the other things and how do you use AI, a lot of these things also have to be taken into consideration. And then here, maybe when you do some of the post-purchase journeys, as you said, you have to have seamless bot-to-agent transfer. Well, you should be able to say, okay, now this is how much I've answered using AI or even NLP models, but you can click and go and say, okay, click to call and go directly to an agent or even a video interface to an agent and have tight integration with kind of the called the customer support experience that's there. So that's rightly said, and I think it definitely those type of things will help improve these journeys that we are looking at. And if you look at it, even the stuff that you're doing right before, and all of you're there in the BFSI space. The technology is completely appending how BFSI is happening, right? Before you have to go to a bank, you have to have an account, you need to get a loan. Companies like Credit B are just dispersing these very easily. They do quick checks about their credit worthiness, give out loans within a few hours. Same thing with even upstocks, right? The next question is going to be for Vasudev. We can talk more, but they're kind of changing the way, just like you have a lot of companies doing in other countries, how people look at investment management and trading options and all that stuff and mobile trading. So my question to him was, when you're trying to integrate AI into customer communication platform for mainly pre-purchase and purchase journeys, how do you see companies like Upstock leveraging AI? Because you want to share investment information, offers, provide mobile trading options with easy one-click payment and chat payment options, and so on and so forth. So maybe if you could throw some light on that as we look at the kind of how the whole fintech space is being appended in India.
Certainly, Ravi. Ravi, it's nice to be part of this discussion. Thank you very much for having over here. Ravi, the customers are getting very demanding. In past 2 years, we have all seen that the customer behavior has changed a lot. We have a lot more new customers from tier two cities. We have a lot more customers who are accessing the internet for the first time, and a few challenges that we went through as a company, and I think the whole industry that is going through these challenges, and AI is helping us a lot. Uh, so one aspect of the AI is it helps you. The other aspect is where it can actually add value, not just helping. For us operationally, when we started around 2 years ago, when we started with experimenting with AI, there are two areas where we thought or think that AI could add a lot of value to us at that point of time. One was operations, where the customer onboarding happens. There are a lot of documentation, there are a lot of verification that needs to happen. We are also talking about the industry which is very heavily regulated. The overall BFSI is extremely regulated. You cannot do mistakes. If you do something, it's very likely that you'll get a call from the regulatory. And the second aspect is the customer journey, or the customer experience itself, right? When they are getting onboarded, you need to make sure that customers are aware where, what, and how things are happening. So I'll talk about both of these briefly. In terms of operations, straight numbers, Upstock saved roughly 60%. uh, our efficiency improved a lot by just implementing the right level of tech over there. The tech that we are talking about is NLP. We validate a lot of things from the documentation that the customer provides to us. We validate so we have a process of automating and verifying the documents. So roughly 60% of our documentations are completely validated. The customer documentation are completely validated by AI. The remaining 40%, or the corner cases, there's always an operational aspect of our system. It took us a time. It took us. We started very slow with that. 1%, 2%. There was a lot of effort involved in it, where we had to put a lot more people to validate the AI itself, how the AI is performing. It took us a lot of time. Uh, there is a very little room for, or a very little margin of error over there. If you do any mistakes, the regulatory will come back to you. Uh, we had a lot of success over there with 60% improvement in overall operation efficiency. We don't have to add more staff to it. Our existing staff was able to perform significantly better. The error rate reduced, customer experience improved, the overall onboarding time reduced from hours to minutes. That's what we returned to the customer. A lot of good things happen out of it. Uh, the second aspects that really helped Upstocks is with the customer support. Again, they all fall under the operations bucket. Uh, our customer support right now is heavily dependent on NLPs, especially the chatbots. That's where we heavily use AI right now. Few important things to note. With AI, there is a very good aspect that the CS agent still have some access to your personal data, okay, after you unlock the data. But with chatbot, it's guaranteed that your data as a customer is completely secure. How you build on top of it, eventually, I think there'll be a point where 80-90% of your queries could be easily handled by chatbots, and very rarely you would probably get down to an agent level, thereby ensuring that the customer data is completely secure, thereby reducing the overall efficiency, increasing the overall efficiency rather, and reducing the overall overhead into a system. These are the two key things that we did at Upstocks in past few years. However, there are other aspects of our system which we really want to build. Uh, as a company, uh, we have a very good customer base who wants to invest into market, and AI helps us basically identify the areas where we can help our customers, thereby giving a more value to our customers, and good returns to our investors. Ravi.
Uh, uh, Thanks, Vasudev. That helps us a lot to understand the context of where you're looking at. And it looks like you're not doing many of these purchase journeys, right? You're doing focus more on the post purchase. Do some of your people come and buy, use payment things to kind of buy?
So for us, AI is mostly onboarding, making sure that the onboarding journey, that is seamless. That is where the actual heavy integration happens. Just to give you an idea, Ravi, to open a fully functional trading account, you require to prove, you require your PI data, you require your Aadhaar card, your PAN validation, your
Right,
bank
right.
statement validation, and tons of operational headache.
Does
Uh,
EKYC, you kind of do an EKYC?
we do have vendors. We work with a lot of vendors over there, and but however, the overall success rate is around 60% right now. And
Okay,
as a
that's
company, our goal is to go as close to 100 as possible.
okay. Yeah, and that's a huge use case. But we have seen across the industry, eKYC is kind of a very huge use case. And talking about payments, right? So kind of we worked very closely. WhatsApp, as you know, allows P2P payments, but not A2P payments. So we worked with a few payment providers and vendors and created uh, A2P payments in chat, A2P payments, and we also kind of won the NPCI Grand Challenge for enabling feature phone payments, right? And as you know, in India's very regulatory conscious, we've been working with them for like 2.5 years now, and finally, we're working with RBI to try it and a few other things, kind of enable it on feature phones itself, for kind of these some of these journeys to create these experiences. Because as you know, UPI has completely taken off, and we did I think $100 billion worth of transactions in December, which was I think about 5 billion UPI transactions. That's huge, right? It's growing a lot every month. So these things are completely changing the way we look at these things. And so, given this context, obviously there's the regulatory aspect that there are some things that are allowed, not allowed, where we have to always meet some of these standards. So my question to Rishabh, from who's the CTO of UGRO Capital, Upro Capital, was what the BFSI is actually a very data heavy industry. In addition to some of these things about the regulations and making sure everything is done right, things like eKYC and other financial workflows. How are you using some of these AI tools to leverage data to improve these flows, including customer support, contract management, and various other financial flows, especially since you are kind of in the capital management business. Rishabh, could you throw some light on that?
Yeah, thanks, Ravi. So, Ravi, I feel in today's world, if a BFSI organization has to compete, then it cannot run like a 9 to 5 PM shop, basically. So, customer centricity is the key for success. And with bots, organizations can keep their brand available 24/7, and customers can ping their brand anytime. So bots have now evolved a lot in last few years. So conversational AI-based bots reduce the gap between a human touch point and a an automated rule-based dummy bot, basically. So customers can now chat in their natural language, and using natural language processing tools, bots can translate customer queries into actionable requests. So we are now working on building solutions for multiple use cases of bots across entire life lending life cycle. So conversation AI tools can now handle user onboarding, customer service, payments, and collections without any human intervention, and while using chat client of their choice. So they can use Facebook Messenger, they can use WhatsApp, and can use web-based bots. So as Karthikeyan also emphasized, as technologies are now available to process data at speed, it enabled hyper-personalization of services delivered through conversational AI bots. So during customer onboarding, inputs which we receive from customers are fed into our business rule engine, and outcomes are being used by chatbots to modify questions at runtime basis customer profile. So today we do not require customers to send large PDF copies of financials to access creditworthiness. So they are API integrations, which made it possible to get this data from third-party sources post customer consent. So this further simplified bot workflows. Though there is still a challenge for onboarding large ticket size secured loans due to a lot of offline processes in place. But pieces of journeys can be moved to the bots, like requiring additional data from customers. So customers can now ask for loan details, their due dates, statement of accounts on a chat without going through hassles of long monotone IVR flows, which used to be there earlier, and even now many of the banking systems are work on these IVR flows. So system automatically send payment due date reminders in a manner which is not very offensive to the customers, and customers can respond to them in their natural language, like I will pay after 3 days, and bot would convert this into an actionable next due date to remind again in case he forgets to pay the bill. So voice bots again take this to another level. They can now talk to customers as a real person and nudge them to pay dues on time, and customers can talk to them as they're interacting with real human beings. So good part, we do not need a large technology team and cost to incorporate these innovative solutions these days. So there are many providers in the market like Upshop, so who are providing conversational AI tools as a plug and play model. So we are working with many of the providers right now and trying to integrate with our systems. And I think these conversational AI tools would enable organizations to service the set of customers which would otherwise not profitable enough to justify setting up a physical call center seat earlier. So organizations can now service even micro loans without incurring significant costs in building large physical customer service setup and even retaining customer satisfaction. As Vasudev earlier mentioned that these AI tools help them in penetration into tier two markets. So I truly feel that this would further enhance financial inclusion and democratize credit in the country.
Yeah, thanks, Rishabh. I think that's definitely very helpful. I think the common theme that I've heard from what Karthikeyan and Vasudev and Rishabh have said so far is obviously, AI and especially conversational AI, and in addition to creating good to great customer experiences, is completely, changing the way, think about it, right? Before, uh, having a bank account, only if you have a bank account, they'll say, okay, now we can get a loan, you apply for a loan, all that stuff. A lot of these things are changing, not only access to capital, not only for consumers, but for small merchants. There are other companies who are doing it for merchants. Some are also doing like enable, payment, managing payment workflows for certain companies. They solve these micro niches. And you can see, as you know, there are a whole bunch of unicorns being created every week. And over 45% of them are all fintech unicorns. So completely disrupting the way we do it, and to serve actually the tier two and tier three cities, because it's the people who are a lot of times unbanked. You don't need a credit card account or whatever. You can just use. You can go to a merchant, use your mobile phone, and use UPI. These things have completely kind of upended the way we look at it, and you could call it, this is kind of the metaverse of the fintech industry, where completely a lot of these things before that used to be done through traditional banks are being created with a lot of these niche fintech plays. That is completely changing the way we do it because of these technologies. We don't need too much of investment in AI or in call centers or your own bot making capability or own your communications platforms and so on and so forth. So I think that's completely changing the way we look at these things. And as you rightly say, it's just there are multiple tier two, tier three cities, and you have to reach out to everybody to make it much more democratized and inclusive. The next question I have is for Nikhil, who's CTO and head of the digital and operations at APAC Financial Services Private Limited. And as Nikhil, as Karthikeyan and Vasudev and Rishabh had also had mentioned, the they talked a lot about these post-purchase journeys and little bit of the pre-purchase and purchase onboarding is big important, right? Getting the customers onboarded, because that's a huge process, because different literacy levels and different language skills and all the stuff. Sometimes onboarding takes a long time. You can cut short that and reduce friction in the pre-purchase journey. And so pre-purchase and post-purchase seems to be the most popular. There is some purchase stuff happening too, and with UPI and a bunch of others, that's also improving. But overall, it looks like the common theme has been like improving these CSAT scores is a huge competitive need that this is solving, making customers happy, satisfied, engaged, right? And basically transforming customer operations to enable, some companies like yours, financial services companies, to optimize the pre-purchase and post-purchase journeys, especially, in collecting feedback and addressing complaints in a timely manner, and quickly servicing customer requests. So given that, and what do you see the role that AI will play in terms of especially the operational aspect of it, the quick ROI and all that stuff? Do you guys see this to scale? Because there are things like you still have to adoption, right? People talk about, you talked about how is it so easy to adopt these things? Because obviously, your experience, because some people may adopt it faster, some people may take it longer, some people may not know anything about conversational AI, some people may already know, they have some expertise. So the varied rates of adoption, and especially in transforming customer operations, maybe you could throw some light on that, Nikhil. And Nikhil, you're on mute. Sorry.
Thanks for informing. So first of all, thank you, Ravi. And before I even share my thoughts, I would want to put it to the table that adoption is something which is in India's DNA, and I have seen that the people in India. To any kind of situations, they would adopt very fast, and they would accept the changes very fast. We have seen it when we moved from a like we skipped the laptop generation, so there was a desktop generation and then the mobile generation. When I think of this subject, that science behind customer experience, I go back 15 years to 20 years and think of my father's house in Indore, from where I made a call for repair of a refrigerator, and I had to explain everything in terms of what make, model of refrigerator, when it was bought, do I have a warranty card or not, what is my name, what is the address, and I had to go through this entire journey. Uh, for my father, it was a natural thing that this is what you have to do when you would want to do something like this. For me, I did come back from US at that time, and I was thinking that it's a little uncomfortable to have every detail to be shared. And I just fast forward myself today, and if I expect my daughter sitting in Bangalore making a call for, let's say, a repair of a water purifier RO, and if somebody asks her that, okay, tell me the make and model of the number, as against saying that, am I speaking to so and so with so and so address? What is the problem? That may be a question which is acceptable by her, and possibly the expectation would be that yes, I understand that the because of the IoT device which is connected, I understand that the filter is gone, we will have somebody send it for a replacement. So the movement of customer expectation from the generation to generation to today's millennials have completely changed. And with this movement, when I come now to financial services as a domain and BFSI, the vertical, I would say that APAC Finance, which is a purely MSME focused lending institution, where we focus the areas which you are mentioning, like tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities, which is a $1 trillion market in terms of need of financial exposure. I would say the customer expectations also are changing along with our uh, dire need of changing the customer experience based on multiple technologies. When we talk about AI, it has multiple use cases related to conversational AI, as mentioned by Vasudev. I think it's very important for when a conversation is hit with a potential customer or a prospect, a conversation which is hit with a existing customer of yours, or a conversation which is hit with a irate customer, or a customer who thinks that X amount of your services were not great. How these three conversations needs to be cognitively uh, responded to, and give a CSAT, right kind of satisfaction to the customer. It is very important. I think expectation of a customer in India. I think Ravi, you have very well put. Multiple languages conversation are not Hindi, not English, but English conversation. In so if somebody is calling from Andhra Pradesh, and he is given an ability to talk to your cognitive bot in Telugu, I think his conversation becomes more objective, and you can address those. These are some of the use cases which are very natural. And I think amalgamation with a new generation coming in, an amalgamation of a formal and informal conversation is something which organizations like Gupshup, Skit, I always keep admiring you guys, where there is a mix of conversational AI solutions and use cases which you folks build for an expectation of a customer, and the need of an organization like APAC, Ugro, and others who are on the panel, as well as the people who are listening to. I would say that if there is a person who is asking for a loan from Alexa, and we have our right integration, Alexa should respond to that individual that within your location, these are the companies which are operating, and based on your current and the need, which is, let's say, a business loan or a housing loan, these are the few companies based on the rating I can suggest you. Once you are moved to a AI platform, conversational AI platform of that organization where he shows his interest to. Sell, let's say APAC. What we would need to build, and this is where we are driving our journey to, what we need to build is that based on the certain questions which you would ask and the information you would gather after taking a consent of the customer, let's say there is a applicable credit worthiness which you have taken from the customer, you advise in that interactive platform to the customer, saying that for this particular loan you may, so for this particular need you may go ahead with a secured loan of so and so amount, and APAC would be able to service that application immediately. Similarly, there is going to be a servicing use case which we are working on, and which would be behavior based as to what are the previous set of questions which a customer is asked for, and then the platform is going to be giving a request response, but the underlying microservice architecture which says that okay, if the customer is Nikhil who has called me or started a chat conversation with me, his previous four questions were around when is my EMI due date, or when is my next what is my end date of end tenor of my loan. If these are the questions, then you respond with that and then ask, do you have any other questions? So possibly you may be asking. So this is an expectation which is growing expectation which is coming in India, and organizations like APAC are moving forward in that direction. Coming to not just conversational AI in terms of customer experience, but smaller aspects which are related to when we talk about fintech players, all fintech players, we all are aspiring to become the best in class technology solution providers. But I think it can work with collaboration. So with a Gupshup or a Skit collaborating with us, with a Kharza collaborating with us, somebody like a Perfuse collaborating with us, bureaus collaborating with us. When we collaborate with those and then make our customer centric use cases, I think we are going to go a long way. And organizations, I'm sure, all the panel members here, all of us are working towards making customer experience, or making our solutions, our financial product solutions around the customer's need. Let it be for origination or let it be for servicing. That's what I would say.
Yeah, thanks, Nikhil. That was very helpful. Thanks for your thoughts. So, I know as Nikhil was mentioning, and also several others mentioned before, I think the key thing is that the customer expectation is already changing with the different generations, millennials and stuff like that. But in the last 2 years, that has also pervaded into a lot of these customers, because once you're remote and you have access to these technologies and bandwidth, and a lot of things are changing around you, you can, people, you see your friends and your relatives get loans in a couple of hours, get this thing done, onboard some certain services very fast. So you say, wow, they can do it, I can do it too. And then it has to be contextual, right? Now they say, okay, I want this personalized, interactive, contextual. So the whole level of the bar to do it, and especially with a lot of the digital native companies coming and doing that, the bar for customer support, customer satisfaction, customer retention is going up. And then people are using these to also do other things, like when you keep the customers happy. At the end of the day, you have a solution, a product that will never change, right? There can be lots of technologies can come, aggregators like Uber and all of them can come, but they're delivering Starbucks product. Starbucks product is Starbucks product. Nobody can take away from that. So similarly, if you're delivering a service, it's the service that the customer wants. And so once you have the service for a certain customer segment and the experience is great, there's obviously the company and the whole thing will, everybody will be happy. Customers are happy, employees are happy, you're happy, and it's a self-fulfilling loop. So that nobody can take away. But when companies kind of collaborate with the best experts, not only Gupshup, there's so many other people helping, but I think when you help and kind of work together to solve what you're good at, your service, to make sure that your service gets delivered in the best possible way, most efficient way, and most delightful way to the customer, then everybody kind of it helps. And that part is completely changing, and this trend is not going to go away. The things of customer expectations are going to keep going up and up. It's not only the younger generation, but that's pervading into the other generations too. They're saying Now, even my mom is expecting all this. You talk about Kentaro, they're one of the customers. She says, I don't know why the purifier guy is taking an hour to come and deliver this and get it done. And their expectation, even the previous generations, I think, is changing.
Changing.
So while all this is happening, we talked about all these things are great, but people ask, like, what about customer privacy? You're getting all this information, their what they want, when they want, what they like, and because it's personalized, everything. But what about privacy, security? It's always been a major challenge for the BFSI and financial service vertical. So, do you, Balaji? This is a question for you, since you're in orange retail finance, kind of more in the pick of these things in the retail thing. So, do you agree that AI-powered predictive analytic tools can help improve, deliver some of these improved risk assessments, fraud detection, also help support kind of a hybrid work culture? Because some people are working from home and doing customer support, and they have access to all this information while they're sitting at home. Before, you couldn't even take anything out of these places where you say, yeah, you solve all those questions here. But now data has to be available mobile because of this hybrid work culture. So, what are your thoughts on this very important topic?
Very interesting, Ravi. Thank you for the opportunity. I would like to thank the Elets team for providing this opportunity. Uh, Thanks for the very nice panel members. Very interesting topic. So I just touch base a little bit about my organization before coming to this. So we started 8 years back in a rural player as a rural retail two-wheeler finance company. So what has happened is those days we be doing only the physical operation where customer comes to my dealer outlet or to my branch where I'll be providing a retail loan to them for the two-wheeler. So that's what the journey we started it. Now from the journey we have moved ourselves to complete digital, like we have a complete mobile app for our customer where they can able to download the app and go to the journey where customer can walk in and get the loan, and customer can visit any of our conversation chatbot and get the loan. Previously, we started with only with the rural, so now we have complete metro customers. So we started with the two wheeler, and then we moved ourselves to used to two wheeler. We moved ourselves to a business loan. We moved ourselves to cash loan. We moved ourselves to loan against property. So whole bouquet of products started coming. And what has happened is the customer base started increasing because my loan ticket size could be smaller, so the customer base is too big for me. So I need to now capitalize the customer. Can I play around with the customers? Can I give this loan after this loan is completed, the next loan? So what has happened is once the complexity got increased, my loan processing need to be much faster and efficient. So what has happened is here for me, the AI gives me a very good use case, the best excellent use case, where by just capturing few information of the customer, okay, I can able to completely process the loan end to end. I can transfer the money to the customer online digitally within few seconds. So that's what the journey is all about. By just getting few KYCs, everything is online journey for me with the customers right now. So this entire journey has helped me to reduce the timeline of the onboarding activity. Where previously I used to take, if you ask me the same 8 years back, I used to take almost 6 7 days. Then if you ask me a couple of years back, I used to take 30 minutes. Now if you ask me, I used to take it less than 5 seconds for complete onboarding activity of the customer end-to-end loan journey. So that's how we build the platform. So since the platform is building, the complexities of the data are keep increasing. So my decision making need to be much faster. So what happened? How much ever the humans are there when comparing everything, we miss out many sets of data. So this is where the AI comes into play, where we can capitalize the AI for multiple things. For me, the business objective is one set of things. Since you touch based on the security, can I see whether there are any gaps in my entire loan onboarding process? Whether there are any anomalies are getting generated since there are a huge set of data. Because once they transfer money, that's it. End of the day, entire NPFC, what they do, they just buy money and sell money. That's what. So we get money from somebody, we sell money to somebody. So the entire process, that's what we are doing. In this entire journey, by getting few parameters from the customer, we just start giving the money. So if the parameters are getting fine-tuned, streamlined, and if any anomalies are raised immediately then and there, my onboarding activity can get stopped immediately. Because the days have gone where they apply waiting for it, then we go into multiple process, then we say yes, sanction, not sanction. No, customer, if they apply it, if they click the same like our, like ordering a Swiggy or a Zomato, immediately the food comes to me after that. Same thing, if they order it, the loan gets completed, the entire journey. So that's how the loan journey has become it right now with the customer itself. Because to buy a product, they need the loan here. So this entire journey, what we have done is we have started working with multiple fintechs, multiple direct manufacturers, multiple banks in this journey. So at any given point of time, hundreds of APIs keep running. It's usually not possible to see whether these APIs are behaving it in the right way or not, or any anomalies are there. So as a AI use case, we can use it at multiple places. One, for my entire onboarding activity, we use our entire AI capability. After that, we also use it for internal security purpose. Like there are various internal users out there, and my entire app is exposed to the customer, where customer can log in and check his entire loans just by giving his only his mobile number. OTP goes with that. He can able to see the complete transaction information. He can able to pay the monthly online EMI payment. Everything is being happening. So from a customer standpoint, where you can able to protect his data sets, what kind of a behavior is happening, so for that also we use the AI capability. So when it comes to conversational chatbot, there we use the AI capability. So these three use cases we use the AI capability. Our only objective for this AI capability to be used is the since being digital player, like only we touch base on the customer experience. Wherever the customer is going, in physical world, same experience, real world same experience, mobile world same experience, dealer world same experience. That's what our objective is all about. So in this entire objective, we have been using this AI tool. Some of the areas where why we need, so what kind of a fraud keeps happening. So one is there is a, why manually cannot be done certain things. Because that extreme high false positives keep on coming. Suppose in a day, if I'm giving 1,000 loan and my user base is very restricted, my ops or credit or people who are checking the data are limited, because sometimes my month end will be very high because I cannot able to plan my manpower everything. So there are extreme life false positive use case will be there. And we also need to connect with a lot of unstructured data. For example, for me, multiple customers will be first time borrower, where I cannot rely on any of the bureau scores because they will not have a score. First time they are buying a vehicle for me from the rural player and they're using app and downloading the app. So I cannot go and deny them because someone need to give them the money, okay, to borrow the vehicle. If nobody started, then there is no behavior for him to start it. So for me, most of the customers could be first time borrower. So can I use some kind of unstructured data from social profiling? Can I get it and put it into my AI capabilities where it can give me a orange score for me? Based on that orange score, I can able to disperse the loan to you. And there are certain things where for best of my business, I can use my AI capabilities. And there's a lack of insights of the data for my analytical team. So for that, I can plug in my AI capabilities. And mostly what happens, there are a lot of outdated rule engines keep happening if you start relying on traditional mechanisms, conventional mechanisms. So a lot of rule-based detection keeps failing and it's all very old. So we need to now rely on this AI capabilities. Next is a complete omni-channel coverage, which we do it. So for this entire omni-channel coverage, we need to rely on this AI capabilities. And then what is happening in the physical world is a lot of alerts keep coming up. But the alerts are all delayed mechanism. So if alert need to come, then and there where it is needed. Then only we can able to stop the transaction. So for that, I think AI is a very extensive use case. So I see these are the use cases where AI can be used to detect the frauds and alert the frauds. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, Balaji. So, are you using WhatsApp for some of these things? So, for these loan
Yes,
disbursement, or
yes, yes,
yeah,
yes, yes.
the reason I
What's
asked,
chat?
yeah, the reason I asked is we have also seen this, and there are people who actually, as you're doing, right, they target some of these up and coming people who have
In
the great
fact, we are working with
popular.
WhatsApp for almost 8 plus. We are working with Gupshe for almost 8 plus years. So I'm with the Gupshe journey for
Right,
almost
right. No,
eight
I
years.
understand that. I'm just
So I
saying that
know
the
most
WhatsApp
of
is
the
recent,
guys
right?
like from previous last year.
Yeah, I think the WhatsApp is more recent. I was more the reason I was asking about that is some because people use for different journeys. But this journey is very common because what people are doing is like credit worthiness of a person, right? They do a quick background check, look at the credit scores, and immediately enable them and say, now you're ready to get a loan, and then immediately they can enter the particulars and within a few seconds their credit check is done and the loan is given, right? So that's why I was asking. When you said seconds, I said I
Exactly, exactly. Because if you put some WhatsApp hi itself, we should be in a position to say whether it's a new customer or an existing customer. That's when existing customer
right, right,
definitely should be
and
exist.
that's why I was
Like a
checking
new
because
product in 1 second.
right.
So
Because when you
the
said few
entire
seconds,
conversation
yeah.
happens, yeah, from the mobile
When
only.
you said few seconds, I immediately understood that it could be you'll be using that. I just want to confirm so that people understand that it's a
Yeah,
great
yeah,
use
yeah.
case. Right? So yeah, I think thanks for explaining. I think this kind of shows how it's not only safe, because obviously some of these things are encrypted, and you can use some of these. And at the end of the day, the flows are very limited, and the information is something what the customer gives, and using it to get something to improve the experience and reduce their thing from, like, few hours, few days to few seconds, or even minutes to seconds. It's great. So that's one of the reasons why some of these challenges of security is not that big, because a lot of these things are encrypted and they're giving the information that they want to get the job done, and they do that even physically. So moving on to our final panelist, Dominic, who's the VP and CTO of Art Housing Finance. The question I have for you, Dominic, is that obviously we talked about AI, we talked about how they're going to help in pre-purchase, purchase, and post-purchase journeys. We talked about how data, what role, data management and security and privacy and a lot of these fraud detection, all that stuff is going to happen. But the big thing is, and Nikhil touched upon it a bit, right? He talked about how do you onboard and how do you think. But the other question is, in addition to deploying these AI technologies, are these can be used to scale the service? Because what we talk about in Gupshup is what the new change because of customer expectations is one-on-one with everyone. You may have a million customers, but all the million customers want to feel that they're getting something very private service, like a one-on-one service, right? So how do you scale using AI? How do you help the BFSI vertical scale its services to make these things personalized, interactive, contextual, always on, 24 by 7 to millions of customers? How is AI? What do you think the role of AI will play in scalability and eventually in deploying all these things in scale? What are your thoughts on that?
Thanks, Ravi. And I think most of my fellow panelists have covered the maximum amount of points related to AI. So, as per your query is concerned, let me that since I come from a very housing finance background, and we work mostly on the tier 3 and tier 4 cities, where customer interaction is very, very important. One-on-one interaction is very important. So when you look at scalability by using AI, it has really helped me in my the complete digital journey, the loan origination up to disbursement journey. It really helped us out, especially the when you look at the scalability at the credit part. Credit part is the place where the maximum amount of time is taken to sanction any loan, especially in the secured loan segment of housing finance, because the kind of customers we have, the kind of financial statements, the kind of credit scores, and analyzing everything and getting a very fast sanction clarity becomes a challenge for us. There we use a lot of AI tools, like we have tied up with some good technology partners like Experian. We work with Grip also, because Grip gives a very good data which is related to more of my business, where we do a lot of analyzing. So AI, what happens when you talk about the complete loan process journey in a housing finance company, it is nothing less than 20 to 25 days, where you find first is your customer acquisition, then your sanctioning process, then after that is a disbursement. The main piece where my important role is your, as I said, it was more of a credit underwriting. Here I use a lot of AI tools, and at the same time, when after the customer is on board, the process of managing the customer for next 10 to 15 years, there we come into AI. AI plays a very important role for us. For example, by using chatbots, interacting with the customer, because today any customer for the matter, whether he is from a tier 3 or tier 4 cities, he doesn't want to walk into a branch, especially post COVID. They prefer to have a more of a digital experience. They need to get going things, and you find a lot of customers working on your what do you call that? They prefer working more on WhatsApp chatbots. So that's where we have enabled them with a lot of bots activity, where a customer can go through his bank, what do you call that? His complete MITC. There's documents what is given to us during the time of loan I've taken, your statement of accounts, then other lot of other things, which is a list of customer experience where we use. And but there are two things to it. One is the scalability, another one is adoption of technology within the system, because we have certain limitations on our system where the legacy LOS or LMS, whatever we are using, there's always a limitation for us to bring in new technology and try to scale it. There we need to have a little bit of workaround, which helps us in getting the things done. Uh, in the further process, the scalability of artificial intelligence will help me out only when I start using NLP solutions more of like, Balaji was just telling that, WhatsApp, where you can even get your loan in principle approval, which, to be very frank, we are actually working with certain technology partners where customer can even get his housing loan through WhatsApp, at least in principle approval, subject to the documentation that which we are working on. So these are certain full scalabilities what we look at from my business point of view. Like one is how customer is going to be engaged throughout the journey. Okay, how are we going to disperse this loan? How are we going to be competitive enough to the competitors who are in the thing when you talk about the technology? Okay, these are a few things which look at as a scalability for us. And uh, again, in our kind of business, regulator plays a very important role. 100% digitization cannot be done, or 100% technology scalability cannot be done, because at every process there is a regulatory requirement where we need to get things done. There are certain manual process which has to be. So it's more of a hybrid model when it comes to technology implementation, and scalability again works on the scalable model. I mean, scalability again works on a hybrid model. So 100% cannot be always a thing. The scalability, when you look at in our journey, it is more at 80%, 20% is more of a manual process. So that's how we do it. And most of the points have been covered by my fellow panelists. I think that's how the scalability has helped me out. The AI has helped me out in scaling my business. And one more thing I wanted to add, when you talk about the collection part, the delinquency part, that is all the AI has helped us, especially in the calculating our delinquency, marking those areas, and seeing how the collection process happens. So because today, when you talk about, because collection is always a pain for us, that's a place where we always lack in behind the NPA. And today with RBI coming with very strict norms, 90 days is the, after 90 days you need to report an NPA. We have built certain AI capabilities in our system where the customer notification has been sent and there are proper documentation is being done. Then the collection, especially the areas where you feel that the customer's journey, last 5 years, we see the customer's the way he's made his repayment schedule. Then depending on that, when is he going to become an NPS? There are certain things which has been used using an AI tool, which has scaled my business to certain amount of to certain level. This is how because housing finance company now works on the hybrid model. That's it, Ravi, from my side.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dominic. That's very useful. As you mentioned, one of the journeys that we talked about is kind of how people are using, one click, the collection stuff you talked about. Obviously, the overall scalability is very important. Where you're saying that some of these people are not even there in tier 2, tier 3 cities. They don't want to come to your branch, but you want to go and service them, acquire these customers, engage these customers, and that's kind of the scalability, right? That's what we talk about. How do you go from a few million customers in these few tier 1 cities to hundreds of millions of customers going to all all the rural areas, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities where people. So that's going to be possible only with the use of some of these conversational technology. The other thing that you also mentioned is things like when people, for even if you send them people a payment reminder or collection reminder, they'll have to go look at their, policy number or account number, and then they have to go online and set up, put all the information. It takes longer. But when you enable it just with one-click bill pay, there are a lot of customers who improved their collection cycles by 10x and spend much lesser, right? Because you just send these reminders with one-click bill pay. They'll say, "Oh shit, I have to pay. I have to pay," and they just click on it, and boom, it's done, right? So I think overall we are reaching. We have just a few minutes. We already we started about I think 15 minutes late, so we have about 6 minutes to wind up. So there are some questions. So I think some of these questions have come in private chats, and I'll bring up these questions. Some of the panelists can answer, or we can answer, so that we can answer these questions in the next 5 to 6 minutes as we wind up. The question I have, one question is, what about rural account holders that don't have a smartphone? So I think I'll just address this briefly, and others can answer too. Is I think there are feature phone capabilities that we are enabling in feature phones. We're working with NPCI. A lot of these things, obviously you can't download some of these apps from the feature phones, but there are even USSD and SMS and even voice type technologies, as all the panelists said, that could help for people who don't have a smartphone. And there's also stuff that we are doing to enable some of the digital mobile app capabilities in feature phone, like one-click bill pay and so on and so forth. So anyone else has anything to add for that question? And the other question, maybe I'll also tee that up, somebody can answer. What is the accuracy rate when it comes to chatbot problem resolution? That's the other question.
Okay. On accuracy rates of chatbot, I think companies like I would say, because Gupshup is being represented here by Ravi, but all companies like Gupshup, they so you call a dialog flow of Google, you call a bot framework of Microsoft. You can think of any conversational AI platform. It runs through a journey of learning. So the first thing is you may initially experience for some use cases that the responses are not as effective. But as it gets matured within your organization, once you implement this conversational AI platform, you will find that most of the questions are being addressed appropriately, and it doesn't need to be diverted to your live agent. And that's what I would say. Even the our financial services industry, if we skip to a airlines industry, when the a flight gets cancelled and you need to go to any of these airlines, Indigo, Star, in India, you start a conversation with the bot there, and the bot is going to do the cancellation, give you give a confirmation of your refund. You don't need to wait in the queue for to a live agent. I think the use cases, more and more we interact with these bots, we are going to be able to see a good response, and a larger base of customer would be able to get their queries addressed with a conversational AI bot. That's my take on it. Certainly on the rural piece, you have already covered, Ravi. When we say that there are feature phones, there's always interaction of SMS. Gupshup has been there since ages for those. It was more for communication. Now the enablement of financial transaction using on a feature phone has already been enabled. So let it be a communication as well as a financial transaction. Both are enabled. It may not be as interactive or easy to use on the screen of a feature phone, but the transaction can happen. So
Right.
I
And
would say
also
that
the USSD and voice and all that, that also helps, makes it more interactive.
that's right, and the voice,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. Anyone else wants to answer any of these questions?
Let me just take it on the accelerator.
No, certainly when it comes to future phone, I think the entire journey can be
One
different.
second,
That's
Balaji. I think
somebody
Karthik
has
is-
a, yeah, that's what you keep the journey different. If somebody is having a future phone, and most of them are having a app downloaded from a Play Store or from an iOS store, the journey will be completely different. Because, for example, in the loan process, for me, the last journey is agreement, where agreement is almost 30-40 pages will go through it. So it's very cumbersome to go through in any of the future phones and all. It's not even
Yeah.
possible. Okay. Whereas in a mobile app, I can go there and sign the digital agreement straight away. So
Right.
I think the journey itself differs based on what kind of a phone customer is having. So that we need to take it right. That's what my
That's good.
thought is.
Agree. Agree. Karthikeyan, you were saying something?
Yeah, so the accuracy rate actually it depends again on the context, right? As in, so for example, we have customers asking why my payment has not happened or it's not successful. So over there, we can give very high accuracy rates because we are very much clear with the data and what we have. But there are some other segments, like for example, how can my credit limit be increased, or how why is my credit limit, why am I not getting a loan, or things like that. Those kind of things we might not be able to give it this thing because that kind of gives out the internal algorithms also out, right? So there we generalize the reasons there, so the customers might not feel that as an accurate resolution of their issue. So it depends on industry wise segments, and also based on the context within that industry, what the problem is, also what the question is being asked also, right? So as I said, different segments you will have very high accuracy rates. Some segments you cannot really have some accuracy rates actually. So as long as the problem is more focused, you have better accuracy rates.
Yeah, thanks, Karthikeyan. I think that's aptly put. So I don't see any more questions. So what will wind up in the next minute or so. I think this has been a great panel. I really thank all the panelists. You guys have been great practitioners who have shared your knowledge about these things. And I think the one thing I would, leaving thought I would say is we are just getting started, right? So this has happened in the last 2 years. Obviously, in 2018, 2019, we saw some of these trends in LATAM, and obviously China has been way ahead. But India, we're just getting started. If you think about SaaS and mobile SaaS and a lot of the other companies, even fintech companies that are the amount of investment that's coming in, and companies that are going, getting access to capital, and unicorn is just kind of a step, right? But that's not the end journey. The end journey is the customer, way the customers interact and do things are completely changing, and especially this is very ripe in the fintech industry, and that's why I keep saying this is like the metaverse of the Indian fintech, right? People are completely what would happen take days is happening in seconds, being access to capital for consumers, small businesses, big companies. The way we look at a whole bunch of other things is completely changing, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're getting started, and as more and more people come in and get access to these, mobile is everywhere. Everybody uses mobile. They interact with mobile, and messaging is the first thing that they do. So it's going to completely transform the way the services are delivered and consumed, and customer expectations are going to grow, and we're going to see huge growth and huge adoption of companies, and everybody's going to get improved. Thanks a lot, everyone, and then I'll hand it over to Shivani to wind up the session.
Thank you so much, Ravi.
Thank you, speakers, for such an insightful session. I would now like to share a token of appreciation. Can we have a certificate? Thank you, Mr. Ravi Sundarajan, Chief Operating Officer, Gupshup. Thank you, sir. Now, I would request Ravi, sir, to hand over the certificates to the co-panelists.
Thanks, Rishabh, for being here. Really enjoyed you being here and sharing your insights.
Thank you, Ravi, for having me here. Thank you.
Uh, Thanks, Vasudev. And I think you shared a lot of things that what Upstock does and kind of how you're using conversational AI to make it very possible. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ravi. It was an honor.
Thanks, Nikhil. I know you're constrained for time and you need to leave any second now, but thanks for staying with us and sharing a lot of your insights and especially how kind of operations can go. But
Thank
again,
you.
thanks a lot. Very insightful things on some of the things you're doing for personalization and interaction. Thanks, Dr. Govind.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you all.
Thanks a lot, Balaji. I know
Thank you.
great insights. Thanks a lot. Dominic, thanks. Thanks for showing how things can scale and how you're reaching some of the places that we are in. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ravi. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you for joining and
Thank
sharing.
you, everyone. Wishing all
Thank
the
you.
very best. It's a very nice panel. Learned a lot from everyone. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you all.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Everyone.